Hello and welcome to Sacred Dance with Trance and this second part to our interview with Suzanne Tempel. Now, for those of you who haven't seen part one of our discussion, can I urge you to look at that video? For that video will help this next section to make a lot more sense for you because it gives you a great background. Let me tell you just briefly that in part one, Suzanne and myself discussed how she came into the field of working as an awakened mind trainer, and she also discussed how she worked in different fields with EEG. She explained the two types of EEG apparatus and measurements that can be done. She also explained how it worked, the brainwaves, the measurements, and the patterns of the brain. So it was very interesting, and also what she found regarding trance development with mediums through these measurements. And it's quite insightful, and it's important to have a foundation, I feel, so that this next part builds upon that. Like any firm structure, you need good foundations. So now you have hopefully that understanding. We can now start moving into what I think will be the meaty part. But I just want to say to everybody that between the two videos that we're doing, the two recordings, Suzanne and I were talking, and a couple of things we feel we probably left out, because Suzanne was telling me about something I suppose we should know, and we should be aware of, and some of us maybe say we're aware of it, but Suzanne was explaining to me not only how her spirit team are influencing and inspiring her work in this direction, but also what the spirit world are capable of actually doing. And I thought it would be, definitely is something that should be said before we continue on, because it also leads us on to further research you've done with Nicole as well. So would you, Suzanne, just explain to our viewers what that was about the spirit world, and especially your team included?
Yes. In the previous video, I explained that I measured Nicole several times, and the last time was actually 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the time before that was, I think, in November. Now, with Nicole's pattern, there was, in between November and February, there was such a profound change within her pattern that I asked her, Nicole, what did you do? Because I sort of predicted to her that there would be a change, but I didn't expect that to happen in such a short time. And in fact, I've not seen anybody do that in such a short time. Now, it's unnecessary to explain what actually happened, because you wouldn't understand anyway when you don't have the background. But it was a profound change. And she said, well, I didn't do anything really. She said, but I know with my spirit team that one of the controls said that somebody else from her team had made a change within her organism, and that was set within her home circle. And so in that same week, I measured her. She invited me to her home circle and to sit. So one of her controls came, one control I know very well, the one who instigated that Nicole should be measured. And he spoke with me, and I asked him, or I was able to ask him, could you elaborate on what you did with Nicole, because I could see a profound change, etc., etc. So we discussed my work basically, and the confirmation came because he went back to other people within her team, and got the answers for me. So I know that they made a change within Nicole that altered her pattern to such a profound way, that when training, you couldn't have done that. So I know with the spirit world, they are able to alter your state of consciousness as well. So this is the reason also why sitting in circles and developing yourself will ultimately lead to another state of consciousness and a state inducive for the spirit world to work with you. But and this is why I love my work, there's so much we can do on our part to speed up that process. So, and I believe that everything we can do on our part to help that process, we should. But they showed me for one of the reasons they showed me and they explained it to me is to show me that they're able to do that.
Wonderful. And of course, as the eyes and ears of people who are going to be watching this and hearing what you've just said,
your audio is gone. I can't hear you anymore.
Oh, okay.
It's the internet again being unstable for some reason.
Okay. Yes, I've just had the same message. We'll persevere with that.
Yeah.
As the eyes and ears of people who are going to be watching this,
yeah.
You say that we should do anything we can do to assist that process.
Yes.
What kind of things could people be doing to assist that process? Because we've established already from part one that the process of teaching this needs modifying, needs a real shake-up and a wake-up call. So what can people do to self-benefit, to help this process along themselves?
Yeah. One of the things people can do is, of course, you need to know where you're at.
Yes.
Is developing yourself. And this is also why the emphasis is so much on personal development with mediumship as well. And there's a very good reason for it, because personal development means looking at your traumas, looking at your personal problems, looking at whatever is stored within your subconscious, to get that out. Now, one of my favorite sayings is of Jung, which is, of course, a very famous psychoanalyst. He said, you don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but you become enlightened by making your darkness conscious. And this is exactly how we need to move forward, how we develop. And I can show that later on with our brainwaves. Once you have access to your subconscious and once you can clear all the stuff there that you've stored for years, emotions, traumas, all the, everything basically is stored there. Once you've cleared that, the signal within theta, because it's theta, will become much stronger. And by becoming much stronger, you will grow and, evolve into other states of consciousness.
So the key, the vital key, although the spirit world are capable of making adjustments to us, which is proved through Nicole, and I know I have seen that done or heard it done through another physical medium whose spirit control told somebody, I was actually present that night, said we are going to make adjustments within your organism, which we hope will produce rapid development. And your research is showing potentially that is quite capable of, they're capable of doing this. But self-development is a vital key for us to move ourselves, and by the sounds of it, what you're saying is to clear out the dustbin of our subconscious.
Absolutely.
And how might a person do that?
one very good thing, because there's more pathways. One is meditation, but there's so many things you can work on. Traumas or stored emotions, or anything that's basically below the surface, still bothering you, from coaches to therapists to whatever suits you. Even mediumship development deals with that in a way, because this is also the reason why a lot of developing mediums cry so much in the first few years. This is to release anything that's stuck, whether it's energy within the body, or it's emotions within the subconscious mind where no memory is connected, or whether there is a memory connected to it, but it's releasing all the old stuff that helps us move forward.
So in a way, that these old emotions, troubles and trauma, or anything else that's stuck in our subconscious, are acting almost in a frictional sense against the process. So by releasing them, you're removing these blockages, these frictions that are holding our development back. Absolutely.
And this is not only true for mediums, because this is the theory about self-development, consciousness development, which I will show you within the presentation. Yeah.
Wonderful. Should we move forward then with that now?
Good. This is the one, I think. Yeah. So what I'm going to show you here. Now this might seem a bit technical, but it's really not. What you see here is the pattern, and as you can see, this is, anybody has seen normal EEG shown within the software can see that this is not the normal way of showing QEEG. QEEG, you will show the brainwave patterns within lanes, or either with a brain map, which means it's showing the brain in a circle with lots of colors. Now this is the way we show actually brain waves. Now assuming the left and the right hemisphere here, and the bars going out to the left and to the right is showing amplitude. That means the strength of the signal. And of course, there is the frequency from 0.75 hertz up to 38. Now the red ones and the yellow and the orange ones are beta. So it's not just one frequency, it's a whole category of frequencies that are beta. Now beta is associated with thinking, our thinking mind. The green ones are alpha, and alpha are associated with inner sensory perceptions, meaning inner hearing, inner seeing, inner feeling, inner tasting, inner smelling, senses, inner senses. And alpha will be produced when we're in a relaxed state turned inwards. So as you can see, in a normal waking state, there's a lot of beta, a lot of thinking going on, but not much alpha, not much inner sensory perception. The blue ones is theta, and theta is associated with the intuition, and I just explained that it's also our subconscious. It's where emotions and long-term memories are stored, and therefore also our traumas are usually have their effect on theta.
Okay.
The purple ones is delta, is the delta region, and delta is our radar. Normally we see with people who had, for instance, traumatic childhood, we can see that delta is showing high amplitudes, meaning a very, very strong signal going outwards. which is logical. When you're a child and you're in your bed and you hear the door slam downstairs and you need to sense whether you're safe or not, you need to search into the field. You need to use that radar in order to be able to pick up that information. Now, normally that is shown with adults who had childhood like that. You can see that normally within their delta. It has huge amplitude. This can be put to very good use when you're a psychic or a medium, of course, because then you need to search into the field in order to find information.
Right.
So when we learn how to, develop our consciousness, or when we learn how to develop ourselves as a person, the first thing we need to do is reduce that beta, reduce that thinking. Now, within the Eastern traditions, they already knew that. They already knew that we need to, when we want to develop ourselves, when we want to develop our consciousness, when we want to become enlightened, so to speak, we need to focus on, one thing. We need to tame that thinking mind. So they're focusing on either a point or a flame or one mantra, and that will reduce the beta or brainwaves tremendously. But there are so much more techniques to reduce beta brainwaves. But I'm just using meditation as an example, so that will reduce the thinking mind.
Yes, yes.
Now, when the thinking mind or the beta is reducing, that gives alpha. So these are the frequencies below that. And remember, they're all adjacent frequencies, so they're working together. So the frequencies below beta is the alpha. So the alpha has now the opportunity to be a stronger signal. Beta is not as overpowering as it's as it used to be in a normal waking state. So alpha has the opportunity to produce a bigger signal. So the bars within this pattern will go out. And eventually, alpha, this is a normal waking state again, alpha will form a bridge. Now, so on the right side, you will see the awakened mind pattern. And the awakened mind pattern has pretty much a high amplitude alpha, which is the green bars in the sensory perception. Now, when alpha is that big, it will form a bridge between the thinking mind, the red ones, and the blue ones, the theta, is the subconscious. So it will form a bridge between our thinking and our subconscious, which we actually need as well when we're working as a medium, because our subconscious is the part where the spirit world works with us. Now, the difference between a normal waking state and awakened mind pattern is that when we ask ourselves a question, when we produce an awakened mind, we go from beta, our thinking mind, asking ourselves a question, through the alpha bridge, through the inner sensory perceptions. We go into our subconscious and then go into the field searching for the answers, and the same way the answer is coming up. So when we produce an awakened mind pattern, the questions we ask ourselves are not answered by a thinking mind, but answered through our inner sensory perceptions, in a sense through our subconscious, through the field, by information from the field or information from the spirit world and coming back up. And even our higher selves is cooperating with this.
So what you're saying is that with the awakened mind pattern, if you are displaying that pattern on the right hand side, that a question from the thinking mind will go to the answer will come from a far deeper place than in the previous example, where that bridge is not as wide.
Yes, actually, there's no bridge at all in a normal waking state. In a normal waking state, there's thinking, and that's it, and radar. But the only thing is, you're not aware of the radar because there's no bridge. So there's
Right.
thinking, and that's it. And this is also why, when we are in a normal waking state, when we ask ourselves a question with our thinking mind, it will be answered with our thinking mind.
Yes.
So yes, when we're in a awakened mind pattern, when we show that, even though it's not a stable pattern, everything we ask ourselves is coming from a totally different place than our thinking mind.
So you could say that the current example on the left-hand side of the screen is the thinking mind being asked a question, and that's about the depth of which it comes from, the answer
Yeah.
comes from. And on the right-hand
Yeah.
side of the screen, you could say is potentially maybe even a medium's mind to some extent, where the answer is coming from a deeper place potentially.
Well, in the perfect world, yes,
Right.
but there's not much mediums who show steady awakened mind pattern.
Right.
All mediums need to work basically is that reduced beta brainwaves, so the thinking mind is reduced to such an amount that the alpha, the inner sensory perception, which is also your psychic senses, right, are forming a bridge to the subconscious. And even if that's in some flashes, that might be enough to get information. But the more stable that pattern becomes, the more easy you will get information from that subconscious through the inner sensory perception produced then outwards. So when teachers say, this is not coming from the spirit world, this is your thinking mind, what they actually mean is your alpha bridge has dropped. You're not having access to your subconscious, and you're answering this with your thinking beta.
Right. Wow. And I suppose, I mean, we are talking about mediumship, of course, but you could this doesn't just extend to mediumship alone. I mean, a general
No,
person
no,
can develop this same bridge to the subconscious, and it's still going to
yeah.
benefit them in the same manner, I would imagine, just without the spirit world involvement.
Absolutely. Professor Cade found that with people he trained towards an awakened mind, they become psychic. Not mediums, but they became psychic,
Right.
which is logical.
It is, and it reminds me of Gordon Higginson talking about in a presentation a long time ago online. Now, whether his explanation is accurate with and matches these patterns that you're showing me here, but he taught that the way to become a medium is first of all to learn to become psychic. And once we've taught you to be a successful psychic, then instead of uh, focusing outside of yourself to the people in the room and reading them, you then reverse your process and psychically read backwards into the unseen world. And I can see I can see his words fitting into this somewhat.
No, not
Yes,
somewhat.
ex-
Perfectly.
perfectly.
Perfectly. Perfectly. This is also, in my opinion, but who am I? In my opinion, what is wrong with how we teach mediums, because we go way too soon in which is in a sense nice as well, because I can't say it's better or not better, but in a sense we should be looking more into psychic exercises first to get that bridge stable, because what I found with a lot of mediums, they skipped a step within their development. They skip the step that they are training to stabilize that alpha bridge. And therefore, at one point, they get stuck. they won't be developing anymore. That's not because they're not able to or they don't have the abilities. It's because they missed a step in their development and they don't know what it is.
But with this, we can start to get a good idea of what that is. And I think it also reminds me of, and I think a lot of people will have heard this so many times, some mediums saying about other mediums, she's a very good psychic, but not a very good medium. Now, when I've heard that said, I've often took it with a little bit of a pinch of salt in case there was underlying agendas or jealousies. But it goes to show that the psychic ability and the development of the psychic ability, to an extent, well, it goes hand in hand. It does go hand in hand. You need that psychic awareness.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Amazing. That's quite amazing. And it's great that we can show it. And that's the pattern on the right-hand side, I suppose, or a pattern very similar to what I'm seeing and everybody else is seeing on the right.
Yeah.
Wow.
But there's this is what is, you know, normal, so to speak, normal. No, I can't say normal. Anyway, this is what we're taught as awakened mind trainers. But there's this. When I bring this into field of mediumship, there's lots of things to consider, because you can't just take this and, you know, put it to like that, like black and white, into a training. Because with mediums, you have to consider that they're just not aware of their psychic, you know, senses as well, but sometimes they're also aware of the spirit world. So they have to, you know, make sense of what's psychic and what's spirit energy. So this is why it's important that you have some knowledge, or you have actually a good knowledge of what it is to be a medium, and where mediums deal with, in order to bring this into the field of mediumship. If you're not a medium yourself, or you haven't worked with mediums to the extent that I have, you still don't know what you're doing. You can train people into an awakened mind pattern, but you can't train them to become better mediums.
Right. Wonderful.
So the next, ta-da!
Oh, the legendary trance state.
Absolutely. This is from, and I need to be very clear about that, from the state of consciousness, from the perspective of consciousness and the states of consciousness, this is the trance state. When you show this pattern, you're in a state of trance, and when you don't, you're not.
So this is what we would officially call a state of trance.
Yes, according to, again, not according to mediums, because we call everything trance, but according to consciousness, in the consciousness work field.
Okay.
The science of states of consciousness. This is what we call the trance state. Now you can see the trance state, we have little to no beta. So the thinking mind is subdued to such in such a manner that there is little to no activity in that area. There is, however, alpha, which is, you know, the inner sensory perceptions.
And that's shown in green on the screen. Yes.
Yes, that's. I'm sorry. Yes, that's the green bit on the screen. And there is also theta, and as you can see, theta is developed quite a lot from the normal waking state. So you can see that when you're just in a normal waking state, when you wanted to develop the trance state, the first thing you need to do is reduce your beta brainwaves, but that's not enough. The reducing your thinking mind won't get you into a trance state. you have to have that bridge, and then you have to clear out anything blocking theta, meaning traumas, stored emotions, and all the clutter you know gather during your lifetime, in order for theta to develop. And as you can see, it's developed to such a state that it's way bigger than the alpha bridge. And this is where having a huge delta comes in handy, because as you can see in a trance state, of course, we have a huge signal going into the field, which is logical. So this is the trance or the channel state.
I can see a lot of potential developing mediums and even established mediums are probably sitting out there now looking at that, saying, I really need to get inside my subconscious and have a good washout. And I'm thinking exactly the same, entirely. It's very fascinating. So just to clarify that, on the left-hand side, on the right, of course, is the normal waking state. On the left, we're seeing the red and the yellow is as the thinking mind being reduced. The green is the bridge between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind.
Yes.
And the blue area is the subconscious, where all of that is stored and where the spirit world are working through.
Yes.
To communicate in whatever fashion they can handle.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes. Now, as you can see within the trance state, when that alpha, again, when you have skipped, or you're just not developed to produce that state in a stable way, there are a few things that can happen. One is that the alpha bridge will collapse because it's just not stable. You haven't trained it to be stable in stages prior to this state. And then you will go into a dream state, because when you remove alpha here, you have a dream state. When you remove theta, you have deep sleep. So this is basically one of the, I think you call it pitfalls.
Yes, a pitfall.
Yeah. With trance. If the alpha bridge is not stable, you're very likely to either fall asleep or go into the edge of dreaming, and where you have the most wonderful experiences and come up and then say that you have the most wonderful experiences, and then you probably know that was, when you probably fell a bit asleep.
Well, I've got two questions to ask you on this. One is that there are very many people who report having, there are those people who say they have dreams in their sleep and they have experiences, psychic or otherwise, with the spirit world. But there's more people, and the majority of the people that I've come into contact with throughout the years and my own study of mediumship, where they find that their experiences of a psychic or spirit nature happen in the light states of sleep, so that when they are in a semi-sleep, either just drifting off or just coming back around, rising in the morning. And that would sort of fit in with what you were saying then, because when you remove one or the other, you have two different states, which of course can.
Well, the spirit world can work with both, and this is also very good to tell people that whatever state you're in, the spirit world, if you're a medium, spirit world will work with you anyway. But it's easier and more stable when they can work with you in a steady state. Yes. But if you're not able to get there, they will work with you anyway, because they can, and they won't miss an opportunity. My point is not that when you don't produce that state, you're not a medium or you're not good enough or whatever. My point is that they will work with you anyway.
Mm.
But if you can do your part on this side of the world to help and to induce a perfect environment and state for the spirit world to work with you, then you might want to consider working with your consciousness and
Yes.
training your consciousness.
And another thing I've noticed along the years is that there are those people who start with their psychic development, then they move towards their clairvoyance, and then later on they find that they develop trance. Is there a pattern in that based on what you're showing me here? Because as you're saying, it's just the frequency differences. So is the training of moving from psychic and clairvoyance into trance, can that be shown in these results in any way? I'm not suggesting that that's the method to go, because some people do develop trance alone, but it makes me I'm wondering, as somebody observing this, whether the process along the way is teaching them gradually as they move towards clairvoyance to alter how they use their thinking mind and gradually expand in different ways, and then the trance awakens a little later on. I haven't seen that happen with people.
Well, it's a more natural way to develop anyway, because when you work in a clairvoyant way, you have to be able to reduce your beta brainwaves at least to such an extent that there's an alpha bridge.
Yes.
And you can only train to go to a deeper state of trance and remain there stably when that alpha bridge is stable. So you need to have some training with alpha, so training with your inner sensory perception in order to get that stable. Otherwise, you will not get into a trance state at all. Or the spirit world will force you into that state because they can. but that's not very likely to happen. And if it does, it's not very likely, because I know you had an experience like that. But it's not very likely to happen every time and very often, because it's taking a lot of energy from them in order to do that.
Yes.
But if you can go to that state yourself, they can work with you so much more easy than having to do that for them. They having to do that for you.
Yes, there is a common thing I hear a lot said by people, which is leave it to the spirit world. Let spirit do it. Leave it. Everything always seems to be a cop out. Let the spirit world do it. They'll guide you. The spirit world will do that. And I often think it's rather a bit of a shame. It's a little bit like everybody going to a church on a Sunday and praying to God all on the same day. It just seems a little bit unfair sometimes to bombard them all with the same problem. It is obviously logical that it's important to play our part.
Yeah, you see, they will do it. If you say I'll leave it up to them, they will do it, because they can, and they will want to work with you, in any way, shape, or form. But I believe, and this is also one of the principles of the so-called spiritualism, is personal responsibility. And I believe that we have, as mediums, a responsibility towards the spirit world as well, to work on ourselves and to be the best channel we can be. And that means that we need to do some self-development in any way, shape, or form. And one of the ways we can develop ourselves is by working in a state of consciousness. So to me, this is all about personal responsibility towards your own team, towards the spirit world.
I think it's wonderful. I am aware that a lot of people, who go to development courses and classes, they do get told, to sit regularly for the spirit world. How they do that, of course, there's so many different teachers, so many different outlets to discuss it. You could never be sure everybody's doing it consistently. But one thing they are all told is to sit for spirit regularly. Now, whether that's you sitting in a meditational state, or whether you're sitting there in the quiet and just trying to relax into the moment, so that the spirit world you can hope they're going to come close. But a lot of people are not consistent. What this is showing us is that time you make to sit for spirit, and to realize that these are very real people.
Yeah,
They're not gaseous. I've always said they are not a gaseous cloud floating around with nothing better to
no,
do. These people are very busy people, and if you
yeah.
ask of them, you need to give that little bit back as well.
Well, how would you feel if you're part of a football team and one of the players is incredibly talented but won't give you the effort of training every Sunday and keeping fit, and they just turn up at in tournaments.
Yes.
um, you work with them any way you can and they will manage because they have some talent, but wouldn't you get frustrated that they are not the best players they can be in your team just because they don't, put in the effort?
Yes.
I would.
I'd be right with you. I'd be ready to throw them off the pitch, I think.
Well, they don't do that. See, this is the problem. They don't do that. They wait so very patiently for you to wake up and say, "Okay, now let's work on me." So, but I always think they can do a lot, but what we can do by ourselves will help. It will help ourselves leading our lives in another way, because once you clear out the clutter, you're happier anyway.
Yeah.
So why not put in the effort? If you want to work with the spirit world, and if you make the commitment, then go the extra mile and work on yourself.
Well, I know we spoke about this briefly in our personal conversations that we've had, but we talk about clearing out the clutter. And what I find fascinating with this, I mentioned this when Kathy interviewed myself, that I took part in a number of meditation retreats called Vipassana, which is a very old technique.
Yeah.
Which involves sitting in silence for 10 solid days. Now, those are people who know me best will probably find that rather shocked that that I could hold my tongue for 10 days. But in 10 days, you started a process. Now, the teacher, S.N. Goenka, explained that Vipassana was so scientific, so logical. And I used to sit there and think to myself, yeah, but is it? Is
Yes,
it
it is.
really? But it is, because what
It
this
is.
is, you're showing through this graph a lot of what he was teaching, except he taught it through metaphor, stories, and such like.
Of course, because that's the Eastern way. Yeah,
Exactly. But
yeah.
it's the same process of a number of days observing breath to still the thinking mind, to control the mind so that you become in control of your mind. It's shocking how little control we have of our mind, actually,
Yes.
until you start making those changes. But
Yes.
of course, then he then instructs you for a number of days to observe sensations upon the body, whether
Which
that
Alpha?
which is that exactly, you're strengthening it through inner perception, like you're talking about. So whether that's the ache in your foot when you're sitting, the sore backside, or the ache in your back, or an itch on your face, rather than reacting, observing, because then you're working on all of that I did is being scientifically proven to an extent
Yeah.
with this for me. So I find this very enlightening.
Yeah. And I can bet you that your week with, or how many days it was with Vipassana, has helped your mediumship as well.
Yes, well, I think I might have mentioned to you that it was after my second course, not the first one, but the second course, when I went in to the course with more awareness of what I was about to face for 10 days, because it can be tormenting. And on that course, I certainly came out 2 days after I left the course, our first home circle, for the first time, evidence came like that. The first attempt. that hadn't existed before that. So I'm not saying that the course did it. Sorry, I'll rephrase that. I've always said I'm not saying that the course did it, and I've never advocated the course as a way of doing it. But with your results, I'm now changing my way of thinking already to say, well, it certainly must have played a valid role in the process.
Absolutely.
The time I gave, I saw results, and maybe the two do go hand in hand. And for other people out there,
Absolutely.
of course, their self-work is certainly going to be useful to them. It's not going to go wasted, no matter how little or much that they do, is it?
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. Yeah, because you're learning to work with your body as an antenna. That you learn to tune your body and your basically your mind, your brain. Now, like I said, there's so many pathways that lead to the light. Um, Mediumship training is one when you do it properly, but meditation and the Eastern traditions that help so much in any way, shape, or form to get you into a state where where it's much easier for you to work with the spirit world.
Mm. It is very enlightening, isn't it? It really is. I'm just going to also say, I mean, I did hear said through a trance communication, not wanting to be controversial to anybody's work, because that's not what this is about, but this was just something that was said. A communicator from the spirit world said that there was a period in your history, now I'm going to call it the 1960s, but there was a period in your history, they said, where Eastern philosophies were starting to come to your part of the world, meaning England and the West, basically, Europe. And they said that the intention was always, they hoped, to bring the Eastern philosophies across so that the spiritualism would merge, would come close to it, and the two would help each other. But that they did say that unfortunately one of those bodies became a religion rather than the movement that it was, and went it and pushed away. Rightly or wrongly, that's for individuals to choose, of course. But I can see a logic of how the two could have met now, having heard
Absolutely.
that some time ago. Wonderful.
Absolutely. And I believe that through science, or applied science in this case, we can all make sense of it, because when we start to look at it not with our preconceived ideas but with our logical mind, analyzing what's happening in the brain and seeing the states of consciousness, looking at the experiences mediums have, and relating that to Eastern tradition and Eastern exercises, you can see that, well, anybody can see, you don't need to be a scientist or a trained awakened mind trainer to see that this all relates.
Yes, totally. It's very fascinating, isn't it? And it's wonderful that now in this day and age we can sit and we can see this research coming to fruition, yielding results, confirming and reaffirming what to be honest, what some of the pioneers have said long ago in their way of expressing it, what some of the Eastern philosophies have said, reaffirmed, but just in a different expression of the same thing.
Yeah.
And really we should be taking heed of this. I think also this is going to potentially challenge a lot of people out there who are teaching it without question. It's going to challenge them how they teach. As you've said already, there are teachers who've changed their approach already based on what they're seeing.
Or were never in the traditional school of going deeper, deeper, deeper. Like I said, I already mentioned Eileen Davis, and I did a course with her, and I never heard her say in any way, shape, or form that you have to go deeper. She even said, when I had a small discussion with her, she even said, well, I don't go deep, I go high. Now, I don't know at that point whether she was aware of the fact that when she meant high, she probably would mean higher states of consciousness. I don't know. Maybe she had the feeling of going up or something. But I don't know. I didn't ask her because it wasn't that kind of a discussion. But I know for one that she doesn't say to students go deeper, deeper, deeper.
So let's look at it. There's going to be a lot of people watching this, and they're going to be intrigued. There'll be some who will struggle to might have to watch this a few times to get their head around it. Just the nature of how we all are different. But if you are someone watching this now and you are on your pathway of development, let's say you not only just starting, but you're a few years down the line of development, you're getting communication coming. What should a person do? Should they perhaps be looking for somebody who can take a brain measurement and observe how their mind is working so that they can move that way? Should they be looking for an awakened mind coach? Is it necessary for them to do that, do you think?
No, it's not necessary, because we have produced lovely, lovely mediums without awakened mind coaching telling them what to do.
Okay.
Absolutely not. It helps though when you sit for trance or you're developing trance and you're not sure, because the higher states of consciousness should be trained quite differently actually from the deeper states. And when you're trance medium and you're not sure, or you get stuck in some sort of way, you don't get results and you have no clue why, then I would recommend, of course, following a course with me. To search for somebody who can measure, states of consciousness. There's a few in the United States. Judith Pennington, I already mentioned. There's Gary Grusbeck, which I already mentioned. I know that in England there is Laura Lilienthal. Unfortunately, Elizabeth St. John is retired, but Laura Lilienthal. You can find her on the Awakened Mind, the Institute for the Awakened Mind, website. But when you want to combine it with a course of mediumship, you can go to the Zwanenhof in Holland, and there's this trance and physical course with Nicole. She's the course organizer, but there's always another physical medium and another trance teacher there. And on those courses, I'm also there. I don't teach a full group, but I teach the whole group with a workshop, a lecture, and you can do your measurements there. I'll be in the UK. No, not the UK. I'll be in the US somewhere in November. So if you're interested, just email me, and I'll look for somebody in your area, or tell you somebody who can, revert to you to somebody who can measure you, because there's also awakened mind, not coaches or trainers, but awakened mind practitioners who have their measurements for themselves.
Yes.
Who do not necessarily train people, but do measurements. So
Wonderful. And what we'll do is we'll be sure to put your links in the comment section of this video when people are watching it. We'll put links to your website and any other links that you want to supply us with. We'll be sure to put them in there. Links to people or literature that might interest people. Of course, it's really wonderful. Do you have any more on there that you want to show us? that on your computer?
Oh yes, there's loads more I want to show you, but
Time is up.
unfortunately, I have to save some of the courses I'm working on.
Of
So
course.
I think for this moment, we have, I've shown you everything on this topic.
Yes.
And of course, there's loads more to tell you about higher states of consciousness and mediumship, because, the higher states of consciousness without mediumship, to me, are not that interesting. I shouldn't be saying this, but
That's how it is.
yeah, but the higher states of consciousness within mediums, is another topic which is extremely interesting.
Yes, it truly is. It's
And
fascinating.
then we also have, gamma, which is not produced, and you didn't see that on the patterns I showed you, but that's another topic that's quite interesting. When
Yeah.
is gamma produced? Why is it produced? Does the spirit world work with gamma?
So there's plenty of other areas. So really, people might want to look into coming along to any lectures or things that you're doing, which would be
Absolutely.
great, because we don't have until 2 a.m. in the morning to go through it all. So, but that's
No.
we will do that, and we'll put those links in there for you so that other people can find this. I think it's been great to bring a little bit of research. There's been a lot of different things brought to the group, a lot of people's opinions. We all bring them. Views, but it's great to have things that are done from solid research, from actual measurements that we can look at and see things that are actually taking place. I think it's important. Science, because at the end of the day, research and science have always did play a part in mediumship way back, and it seems to have seemingly seems to have vanished a little bit
Yes,
off the radar,
absolutely. And it's such a shame. It's such a shame.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And yeah, wonderful, Suzanne. Thank you
So
very much.
if you have ever a topic which you want clarification on, I'm very happy to show you some of the footage I have, anonymous, of course, to show you actually what's happening within the brainwave pattern when, for instance, it collapses, or somebody's falling asleep, or whatever. So if you have ever a new topic, or you want to talk or discuss gamma, we'll have to discuss that.
Yes, we can make time.
Yeah, I might be inclined to come up. Depends on the reaction and whether people like it or not. So maybe nobody cares. That's fine too.
Oh, wonderful. Well, Suzanne, on that note, I'm going to thank you. I'm going to thank you for what you brought to us. I hope, folks out there, that what Suzanne has shown you today, this evening, or whenever it is you're watching this seminar, I hope that you take from it a new insight as to what trance is, and how you will learn to work with it, or it gives you an insight on how to work on yourself, at least, so that you can go forward and develop your mediumship to the best of your ability and the spirit world's ability. As we said, really, this is about you doing your bit for them as well as them doing their bit for you.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to add on that, Suzanne?
Well, then we'll just remember that a lot of really good trance mediums don't work from a state of trance. This is very important to realize that there are altered states, including higher states of consciousness, mediums can work from. And I believe that we need to realize that, and we need to start realizing that. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And wonderful.
No, it has been. I hope everybody will show their appreciation, and will take from this as much as that they can, and go forward and develop. So it has been wonderful. Thank you for doing this for us, Suzanne. And on behalf of myself, Kathy, who I know will be watching this, and Nikki, who are the two admins. We are the two admins, and Kathy, who runs the group. Thank you sincerely. And folks, we will put the links in and any other details that we can support you. So we thank you, and don't forget part 1, which helps bring all of this section into a foundation. So thank you very much. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody. And we look forward to speaking with you again in the future. Good luck with your work.
Thank you.
And enjoy. Thank you. Thank you very much.